Jonah was a firecracker. He honestly was. I just remember his energy and how he loved life. Whatever he was doing, he had a great time. And you could see it all over his face. Infectious smile. He was very sensitive and loving. But he was wide open about 95% of the time.
Yeah, he had a propensity to get into trouble.
Yes, yes he did.
A good bit. He loved baseball, great baseball player. He loved all things camo, hunting, fishing, always into something. And he could always light up a room.
Most definitely.
Yes.
Jordan and Jeremy both have always said that our lives would have been very boring without him. He was just a bright spot. Jonah was in 6th grade, and we were planning a trip to Cooperstown, New York for his team, and he started getting headaches. So we took him in, had him checked out. He had double ear infection. Got antibiotics, got medicine and everything, and he was still having the headaches and actually getting sick with those headaches. Our primary care physician said, I'd just really like to do a CAT scan. So we went in and did the CAT scan. I got a telephone call from his doctor, and he asked me if I was sitting down, and I said, yes, I am. And he said, Jonah has a mass on his brain, on the left side of his brain, and I need you to go to Brenner Children's Hospital immediately.
I got the call from our primary doctor, totally unexpected. I hadn't spoken to Amy. I knew Jonah was going back to the doctor that day. I jumped up and I drove to the hospital, and I cried all the way. I'll never forget the look on his face when it hit him, that he was that sick and that there wasn't going to be any more baseball. And that is still ingrained in my mind today.
Jonah just, it was a holler and a cry all together, and we all three just fell apart. He kind of soaked on it, really, but then a little bit later, a lot of my family was here, and we were just talking, and he just looked up and he said, am I going to die? The only word that comes to mind is gut-wrenching. I just, like you're kicked in the gut. It's indescribable. Honestly, it is. Everything else fades away. I couldn't call it cancer. I couldn't say the word tumor for months, even after that.
I remember thinking that we got this. And I had no idea the journey that was about to happen.
We never did ask what Jonah's prognosis was. They were going to treat it with radiation and with chemo, and it came back. Throughout the whole thing, we had tremendous ups and downs, but we tried to make the most of the mountaintops, and we just tried to hunker down and walk with God through the valleys. That's all we knew to do. I did not doubt that God was going to heal him. I didn't. And I just knew that one day he'd be playing for the Braves, and they'd have a rain delay, and to the side, they'd do Jonah's story and talk about his tumor and how he overcame it. And I just thought God was giving him a big platform. About a year after Jonah's first diagnosis, he started having trouble walking. His legs would just give out on him, and they found cancer on his spine. He had almost had all of the radiation that he could handle. And he was a sick young man. He slept most of the day. Light was too bright. He would cover his eyes. He was in a wheelchair most of the time. We then got the quality versus quantity speech. I think that's the first time I realized he's not going to be healed. We're taking him home to die. And I just prayed, and I told God, I said, if you're going to take him, then you've got to prepare our hearts, and you've got to prepare his. And he did. God prepared him. And it was during those last 9 months, we saw a shift.
When a child that is 14 years old has embraced death, embraced Jesus as his personal Lord and Savior, I don't think it can do anything but have a tremendous impact on you. It brought my relationship much closer to Jesus Christ.
I've never seen anybody that age grow in their faith so quickly. He would be laying on the couch with his eyes closed, and I'm sure he got tired of me asking, but I'd say, "Jonah, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mama. I'm just laying here talking to God." He would knock on the wall. He'd say, "When I knock on the wall, I'll be ready for you to come to bed, but I'm going to have my quiet time." One night he was sitting here with Jeremy, and he said, Jeremy, I got something to tell you. It's important. And Jeremy was looking at his phone. He said, "Dude, listen, this is important. God is more important than baseball. God is your life. You've got to know him. You've got to get close to him. He has got to be number one on your list." He had kids on the ball team that would come over and spend the afternoon with him playing games. And I would hear him talking to him about what he was going through, and he would tell him that God was getting him through. You know, he was not afraid to tell people what they needed to hear. Behind our couch, we got a thing on the wall, and it's in the shape of a cross, and it's got a lot of the names of God on it. And he would lay there on the couch, and we would read off the names of God. And to hear him say those names of God out loud, God gave me a lot of things that normally I wouldn't get to have with a 14-year-old kid. 14-year-olds don't like being with their mama and daddy too much. But he gave us some sweet, sweet times. When Jonah was first diagnosed, we had friends that had shirts made. And on the back it says, "Walk in like Goliath and fight like David." Really, because Jonah named his tumor Goliath. And he said, "I'm going to fight like David. I'm going to fight on my knees. I'm going to pray. I'm going to fight with the Lord." And what he shared with that ball team, and the way he showed them how to live and told them why he was living and who he was living for, I just feel like that will be Jonah's story. His legacy's still alive. All of us are going to die, but we need to listen. Dude, you got to hear this. Jonah's 3 areas of passion when he passed away were God first, baseball, and children with cancer. So those are 3 areas that we take the money that we raise through the Team Jonah Fund. When we can find one that meets all 3 at one time, it's awesome. I think it's just like anybody, just because they pass doesn't mean the seeds that they planted die. They continue to grow, and they continue to bear fruit. The last real conversation I had with him, he told me, he said, "Mom, I know that when I die, I'll go to heaven." And he said, "I'm not afraid to die. I just want y'all to go with me when I go." So we talked a lot about how he was going to see Jesus, and by the time he turned around and finished that exploration of heaven, we'd be there. He knew where he was going beyond a shadow of a doubt. I have had many people say, "How can anyone stand losing a child?" Which has given us the opportunity to tell people his story and to share with them that it wasn't us. There was almost a sense of betrayal. Like, I knew you were going to heal him. I had to come to the point where I was like, God is God and I am not. Tommy told me many times, he is not ours. He is on loan to us. So it's not like God took him from us. And God ultimately healed him, just not in the way we thought that it was going to happen. If you remember, God gave manna to the children of Israel in the desert. And he gave it to them one day at a time for that day. And that's what he did with his grace with us. He gave it to us for that day.
You know, he's always there with you. But he doesn't show up every day in your life like you think he should. It may be that you're hurting, and when you're hurting and you think, you know, where are you, God? But I'm here to tell you, he shows up. And sometimes when he shows up, it's out of this world.